This is Pulse of Africa, the face and voice of Africa. The story of resurgent and burgeoning Africa is here, only on the Pulse of Africa channel. Pulse of Africa, the face and voice of Africa.
Welcome to Pulse of Africa News. I'm Frau Namak, and we cover inspiring stories and key moments shaping Africa. We will start with SADC. The Southern African Development Community has deployed its emergency response team to support Mozambique and South Africa following weeks of severe flooding that have caused widespread destruction, displacement, and loss of life. The intervention announced by SADC ahead of communication, Barbara Lopi, represents the bloc's largest coordinated regional response since extreme rains began affecting member states late last year. The ERT will operate from 23 to 31 January, working with national authorities on emergency responses, impact assessments, early recovery planning, and the development of a coordinated regional humanitarian appeal. Mozambique and South Africa have been among the hardest hit, with Mozambique declaring a red alert on 16 January and South Africa declaring a state of national disaster on 18 January after flooding overwhelmed infrastructure and response systems. By January 2026, more than 1 million people had been affected across the region. SADC said its humanitarian and emergency operations center is coordinated closely with the UN agencies, the Red Cross movement, and national disaster bodies to ensure a unified, timely, and effective humanitarian response. Burkina Faso's government has handed over 375 new buses to the public transport company, Itracom, boosting the capital's urban transport network and supporting broader mobility reforms. Prime Minister Talva Jean-Emmanuel Ouedraogo officiated delivery today, combined with an earlier batch of 155 buses delivered in August 2025. The total number of new buses provided under this initiative now stands at 530. The fleet's expansion of the part of the government urban mobility strategy under the Presidential Initiative for Quality Education implemented in partnership with Vista Bank Burkina, with a total program cost of around 44.87 billion francs. Officials say the new buses will improve safety, efficiency, and affordability for students, workers, and other residents, while helping address traffic congestion, environmental pollution, and high transport costs. Prime Minister Ouedraogo stressed the importance of proper maintenance and optimal use of the fleet to maximize public benefits. The initiative reflects the government's long-term vision to modernize public transport infrastructure and enhance connectivity across Burkina Faso's urban centers.
Ethiopia's green legacy initiatives are restoring urban parks and expanding green spaces across our cities. Green spaces protect the environment and strengthen healthy, resilient communities.
Burundian company Itracom Fertilizers Limited has announced plan to construct a fertilizer plant in Zambia with an annual production capacity of 1 million metric ton, a move expected to reduce the country's reliance on imported agricultural inputs. The firm said Zambia's abundant raw materials and strategic location make it ideal for large-scale fertilizer production. The announcement followed a meeting between Itracom chairperson Adrian Nitagika and Zambian President Hakainde Hichilema at State House in Lusaka. Nitagli said the project could create up to 5,000 jobs and once operational positions Zambia as a key fertilizer supplier to the wider region.
Then we thank you first of all So I will continue to talk about Itracom holding on his behalf. We are lucky because here we have the resources we need as a raw material. When we talk about organic, we are talking the use of cow dung, which we know is here we have a lot. They may not use it, but for us, it's a raw material at 30%.
President Hichilema welcomed the investment, describing it as a major boost to domestic manufacturing and agricultural productivity.
Africa is a continent that does the least business with itself. We do the very little or almost near nothing business with each other. We who you have elected into offices want to change this situation. When we talk of growing our economies, Burundi economy, Zambia economy, when we talk of growing the African economy, and therefore invariably we talk of investments in different sectors, we want to see investments in the context of Africa with Africa. African business people in Burundi, African business people in Zambia.
He noted that the project builds on economic cooperation talks held during Burundi President Evariste Ndayishimiye's state visit to Zambia in 2024, underscoring growing regional industrial partnership.
We also understand the importance of different types of fertilizers, right, which would suit certain soils. I'm a farmer myself, Mr. Chairman, so which will suit different soil types. So there's always a gap in the market, and we believe you bring a niche product in the market, and we are happy to welcome you here fully. You have our full support. Please indicate that to President, my brother Ndayishimiye, that you have our full support.
Zambia has faced a long high fertilizer costs due to dependence on imports and exposure to global price swings. The government say expanding local production is critical to stabilizing supply, lowering costs for farmers, and strengthening national food security. Ghana and Pakistan have entered a new phase of bilateral relation with the signaling of two memorandum of understanding in Accra aimed at strengthening political cooperation and institutional collaboration in diplomatic training. The agreements were signed on Monday and coincided with the maiden session of the Ghana-Pakistan political consultations. The MOUs covered the establishment of regular bilateral political consultations between the two governments and cooperation between Ghana's Foreign Service Institute and Pakistan's Foreign Service Academy. Officials said the framework will institutionalize dialogue, enhance coordination on regional and global issues, and promote sustained engagement between Accra and Islamabad. Ghana's ambassador Khadij Idrisu described the agreement as a historic milestone that moves relations beyond goodwill to practical cooperation. She noted that collaboration between the two diplomatic training institutions would foster capacity building, professional exchanges, and stronger foundation for long-term bilateral engagement. Acting Chief Director for Political and Economic Affairs at Ghana's Foreign Ministry, Ambassador Harold Alija Ayiman, said the MOUs build on decades of friendship dating back to the establishment of diplomatic ties in 1958. He added that the political consultations mechanism offer a predictable platform for engagement at a time of increasing global uncertainty, and welcomed the reopening of Pakistan's High Commission in Accra in 2022.
I am excited by the relationship that is being forged between the Foreign Service Institute of Ghana and the Foreign Service Academy of Pakistan. I look forward to the development of a schedule that would set out the joint activities to be undertaken by our two institutions this year and beyond. This signing ceremony and the inaugural political consultations mark a historic milestone in the relations between Ghana and Pakistan. They bring our two countries closer together, driven by a shared vision for mutual prosperity, growth, and advancement of South-South cooperation.
Pakistan's Ambassador Hamid Asghar Khan said the agreement reflects Islamabad's renewed commitment to Ghana and West Africa under its engaging Africa policy.
This visit is indeed very significant because it takes place after a long gap. The re-establishment of our mission in Accra in 2022, after almost 2 decades, is a reaffirmation of Pakistan's renewed commitment to strengthening our presence not only in Ghana but also in this very important region. We are keen to enhance our collaboration in all spheres of mutual interest. Pakistan's foreign policy towards Ghana in particular and West Africa in general is guided by the principles of mutual respect, peaceful cooperation, and shared prosperity for our people in very challenging times.
He described Ghana as a key partner in the sub-region and expressed confidence that the MOUs will translate long-standing cordial relations into tangible cooperation across diplomacy, trade, education, defense, and people-to-people exchanges. Moving on to our business headlines, global energy major Shell has announced plans to invest an additional $20 billion in Nigeria, citing renewed investor confidence driven by policy stability and reforms under President Bola Tinubu's administration. Shell CEO Wael Sawan disclosed the plan during a meeting with the president in Abuja, praising the government for creating a favorable climate for long-term investment. Sawan said Nigeria has re-emerged as a preferred destination for global oil and gas capital, noting that Shell is expanding its footprint after years of scaling back. Recent commitments, including $5 billion in Bonga North, $2 billion in HI, and ongoing investment linked to Nigeria LNG, reflecting confidence in the country's improving regulatory and macroeconomic environment. The centerpiece of Shell's future plans is the proposed Bonga Southwest Deep offshore project, which could attract up to $20 billion in foreign direct investment and rank among the world's largest energy developments if it reaches final investment decision. Shell has already increased its stake in the Bonga block by acquiring interest divested by Total Energies. President Tinubu welcomed the announcement and approved targeted investment links initiatives to support the projects, stressing that they are designed to drive new capital, boost local content, and add in-country value. He directed that Bonga Southwest should reach FID within his first term, underscoring the administration's push to accelerate major energy investments. Angola plans to raise about $1.7 billion on international capital market in 2026, according to the government's annual debt plan released on Tuesday, as the oil-producing country seeks to manage mounting fiscal pressures. The plan also outlines efforts to secure roughly $1.4 billion in commercial financing, including debt for health swap operation, alongside $500 million from World Bank development policy operations to support budgetary needs and reforms. Angola continues to face heavy debt service obligations, with repayments expected to absorb more than 40% of total government expenditure this year. The strain comes amidst modest economic prospects, with the IMF forecasting growing of around 2% this year and a gradual recovery over the medium term. The government is working to strengthen public finances by cutting subsidies and opening up the state-dominated economy to greater private investment, aiming to reduce vulnerability to oil price swings and improve long-term sustainability. Now to sport news. The second edition of the CAF Football Executive Management Program, a partnership between CAF and the University of Cape Town, is underway in Cape Town and will conclude with a graduation ceremony on Friday, 30 January 2026. Building on the success of the inaugural edition, the program brings together senior football administrators from across Africa for intensive training in governance, leadership and management, key pillars of CAF President Patrice Motsepe's vision to strengthen football's administration on the continent. Participants are receiving high-level instruction from a distinguished faculty, including Jessica Mutang, Deputy Chairperson of the African Club Association on Commercial Strategy, Robin Cox, Managing Director of IMG South Africa on Football Marketing and Sponsorship, Natasha Peterson on Operations and Change Management in Modern Sporting Organization, Natasha Breirkamp of the Football Foundation of South Africa on Sustainable Development in Using Sport for Social Change, and Verity Price, an award-winning keynote speaker on leadership communication. CAF Director of Member Association, Sarah Mukuna, highlighted that the program strengthens professional capacity, ensuring African football institutions are prepared for global challenges. The initiative underscores CAF's commitment to sound governance, strong leadership and professional administration as critical drivers of sustainable growth and global competitiveness of African football. Let's take a look at the current weather forecast across Africa. Before concluding, we encourage you to watch the Africa We Want, which comes after the news segment. Thank you for tuning in and goodbye.
Africa we want. Ethiopia's national dialogue is being presented as a platform to confront the country's deepest political and social divisions. To understand what the dialogue is, how it works, and what happens after citizens speak, we are here with Dr. Jonas Adai, a peace and conflict studies scholar, longtime academic and associate professor at Addis Ababa University, who until recently served as director of the Institute for Peace and Security Studies, and one of the 11 commissioners of the Ethiopian National Dialogue. Dr. Jonas has spent years studying conflict reconciliation and dialogue processes, both in Ethiopia and internationally, and now sits at the center of a process tasked with translating national conversations into collective direction. Thank you for joining us, Jonas.
Thank you very much indeed for having me.
Dr. Jonas, you've studied dialogue and conflict resolution for years. Today, you're helping lead one in real time. For the viewers who keep hearing about this national dialogue and have a hard time understanding it, what exactly is Ethiopia's national dialogue in simple terms?
In simplest possible terms, the Ethiopian national dialogue is an instrument to build sustainable peace in this country, which is hungry for peace. Maybe to go a bit further, dialogue is a process of seeking the truth so as to build, as we said, this social fabric which is being disrupted by continuous, sometimes disagreements, sometimes feuds, some other times low-key conflicts, and some other time coming to the level of war. So to dialogue is to search the truth. Where does the fundamental structural cause of the conflict lie? So when people really come to that, they happen to use their emotion as well as intelligence, yes, and they dig deeper, and then after having discussed openly without any fear for censorship or controlling or punishment, when they speak their mind, they bring out what's been buried. So this process, in very simplest term outside, is dialogue, which is natural conversation, which also involves, most of the time, listening to each other, respecting each other, accepting differences, not simply tolerating, but accepting, respecting, and sometimes putting oneself on the other's position. If I just wrote here number 6, you would read it as 9. If I were in your place, then I see from your angle. So such reciprocating process, what we call in academic as well as in applied area, is a dialogue. The national dialogue, which is national, then this time it is nationally owned, locally owned dialogue. I really have to underline here, because sometimes people really get confused the meaning of dialogue and national dialogue. So national dialogue focuses on the national issues. It should be owned by the very nation, the very people. Otherwise, it might be controlled by external forces, and the consequence becomes a failure.
The national dialogue in itself is independent.
Excellent.
But it was by the state that it was.
Excellent. That is another extremely important question. It is independent. I would say, in its clear English, it is interdependent. Because in philosophy of science, we don't have totally independent item or entity by itself. We always need each other. However developed you might be, however advanced the country you could be, you might need others at the same time to live together. So National Dialogue Commission, Ethiopia's National Dialogue Commission, is quite different from any other national dialogue in the world. If we take that of Tunisia, for instance, towards the end of Ben Ali's regime, almost there was to collapse. Then they set up a national dialogue. The same is true in some other countries. When countries are very fragile, very weak, or also fail, then civil societies, universities come together and set up. The same is true in Poland, for instance. During the end of Cold War, the train workers, it's called Solidarity Party, they came together because almost they are going to be stateless. Then you have Lech Wałęsa, which is a Polish pronunciation. I must be very careful there. And then they had to set up, then they had national dialogue and salvaged the very country. Ethiopia is taken as a long-term sustainable peace strategy. And in Ethiopia, you know, we had more of the time conflict than peace. So what are these causes that make Ethiopia known not for peace, but for war? Sometimes if you have seen in dictionaries, such as Oxford English Dictionary, for instance, synonym, poverty or famine in Ethiopia and Africa taken as similar. So how can we get rid of this? By dialoguing. Hence, the state should own it. State means here, I'm very happy we're speaking in English. It's different from government.
Okay, yes.
Absolutely. So we are working with the state. The state must set up the court, the police, the universities, just like that. National dialogue as well. Hence, it is interdependent rather than independent, working alone. It works with the media like you, with the government, with the religious establishment, with, of course, the international community as well.
What problems do you think this dialogue is meant to address that elections, political reforms, and peace deals have not yet, been able to solve? That's
another very important question. In its proclamation, its establishment proclamation of 2021-22, you can possibly see from the preamble that it is to address the fundamental causes of conflict in this country, which includes the election aspect, the establishment of democratic governance aspect, and most importantly, addressing historical issues, marginalization issues, identity issues, even constitutional issues. These are some of the activities which are regarded as fundamentals, because we focus on fundamentals. I think I really have to make this academic English into everyday English. When we talk about fundamental or structural, we mean something that's been entrenched for years, for ages, that's barely, which keeps on coming, recurring, then causing conflict. So how to address these frequent causes of conflict, not what's happening now, what's called in academic English proximate cause or current one. So we look into the historical ones, the past, as well as the recent ones, and the solution coming from the very people who are the center of the very dialogue process. And based on that, then we make recommendation to the parliament, to the executive, and to other concerned parties.
So as an elected official of House of People's Representative, that means that you take agendas and recommendations from the people. Do the people actually come up with solutions?
First and foremost, discuss in detail the fundamental problems, fundamental causes of conflict in their areas, because they understood for conflict in Ethiopia. That made us, sometimes you might have seen people after having lived for centuries, then all of a sudden, because of recent political phenomena, particularly for the last 30 years during EPRDF, TPLF-led EPRDF time, the constitution revolves around ethnic politics, ethnic federalism. As a result of implementation of this ethnic politics, those who live together started to push, no, you are not from this area, you are a settler, you are someone who, you are a foreigner. Even though Ethiopians live together through marriages, through trade, through different communications and social fabric, who live together, because of this ethnicization of politics and politicization of ethnicity, then that chaotic situation created in Ethiopia, that kept on time and again fueling the fire of conflict across universities, civil societies, countryside, as well as the townships. You might have seen, particularly the last 4 to 5 years. And then we had to not simply sort of fighting the fire, but rather what caused it. What are the causes? Then people discuss the causes. People also suggest the solutions as well. So these are to be incorporated in what's called agenda setting process, because we have to refine, first collect, then refine, then set them, and finally recommend it to the Parliament or House of Representatives, as you rightly mentioned.
You mentioned in an interview, you and the other commissioners even went as far as to go to diasporas and ask them what the agenda setting should look like. What do you find is the most common thing they mention?
The recurrent point that kept on coming wherever we went, say we went to South Africa, to North America, particularly to the USA and Canada, and also Middle East, and Europe, particularly in Scandinavian country, focusing on Sweden and Great Britain, United Kingdom. And the most repeated agenda was the question of constitution. They say they hold the constitution responsible for causing fundamental conflicts in Ethiopia.
Like the ethnic divide?
Ethnic divide. And they say dividing the country on ethnic lines itself, they say it is sort of the real engine of conflict. This is what we had. Another one, of course, related with the dual citizenship for diaspora. And most importantly, again, governance aspect, corruption. Yeah. So governance, because it is a very the governance deficit that took them away from Ethiopia. They love Ethiopia, they love the people, the country, but because they were compelled, they were forced to leave their own country, live somewhere else, so as to have better, not only greener pasture, but also better political experience as well. So these are the fundamental issues. One being, the number one being, of course, the constitution, and then this more than having more than one citizenship. And maybe the third one goes to governance and identity, and what's the new constitution should look like. They also come up with their own solutions.
The National Dialogue Commission is, designed to collect views and make recommendations.
Yes.
So can you clearly explain what happens when those recommendations, once the dialogue concludes, what happens?
3 things are expected to happen. Number 1, build national consensus, because it is based on discussions, debates, conversations, and dialogue in general. So at minimum, these 3 things. The first one is building national consensus. Even sometimes agreeing to disagree as well, to work together, to discuss together, and of course to build the country together. The second one we expect is building trust between the state and society. This time, the very governments and of course the very people, both of them are sovereign status. They are there. The sovereign people electing their own governments. They are not dictated by anyone. The agenda was not given to them from anywhere. I say this intentionally. Yeah. And if we take Yemen National Dialogue, it was set up by foreigners. And finally, of course, it failed to succeed because the ownership was not by the sovereign people of Yemen, but rather it was remote control from outside. So that's trust building between the state and society. The final and most important one is building the peace culture in this country, particularly bringing about paradigm shifts in Ethiopia's politics. For instance, Ethiopian politics so far has been, of course, it's true in some other areas as well, as political science teaches us, but it is mostly based on zero-sum game. But which is? Which is only winners take all. Oh. And so in Ethiopia, we want to make dialogue a culture. Whenever you have disagreement, you don't have to carry guns and go to the jungle. Agreed. Come under the table, to the table, or under the shade, according to our country's culture. Then discuss the differences, rather than disseminating hate speeches or disinformation, malinformation, or fake news. Come together, let's discuss, let's debate. So making dialogue a culture of Ethiopia with spillover effect to across Africa as a whole. So that is a fundamental issue. So to summarize, three things we expect at the end of the national dialogue: national consensus, trust between the state and society, and making dialogue a culture of political culture of Ethiopia.
So beyond your own moral persuasion, what practical mechanisms exist to ensure decision makers, take the outcomes very seriously?
I think that is another important question. Yes, as political scientist, as peace studies professor, I definitely like to be skeptical. It's good to be skeptical, to be critical in your speech. But given, irrespective of that academic culture, my background, I would rather take it for granted at times that I trust the Ethiopian people. I also trust the Ethiopian government. I also trust the very process itself. And Ethiopians are really, hungry for peace and development. Yes. Absolutely. So Ethiopia's image has been distorted in different areas, unfortunately. So as to change that, people showed commitment at every level: grassroots level, Warada level, the regional level, and of course at the national level. Given that commitment from the people, disposition from the state and government as a whole, and political parties and civil society, because they all are committed into it, they said enough is enough. What they showed in Great Ethiopian Renaissance Dam is to be repeated in the national dialogue as well, because it is commitment. Where there is a will,
there's a way.
There's a way. You said it.
Earlier you mentioned other countries who have not been successful in national dialogues, have failed, not because people didn't speak, but because political elites did not listen. And yet you still say you have trust in the government and you have trust in the state. What gives you the confidence, that Ethiopia's political environment is different than any other country before?
Ethiopia's uniqueness in the whole world, not only being the origin of humanity, but its political culture is quite different at the same time. Across the black world, it is only Ethiopia that came up with victorious stories across Ethiopia through Adwa. That really makes Ethiopia different, unique. Again, we are expecting the third Adwa in national dialogue, the second being GERD. And that uniqueness, number one, based on the commitment of the government. No one forces the government to set up national dialogue. True. It took this one as it is long-term strategy to build peace. Yeah. Secondly, when you went down to the people, they say, long overdue. We need it from the very beginning. I wish you were there for 20 years ago, 30 years ago. People, that's why I said, hungry for peace. So now we need discussion, debating, conversations, dialogue. So the empirical data, the phenomenological data, and the life I have lived made me trust the very people and the very state at the same time, and the very government at the same time.
From a Pan-African and conflict prevention perspective, how should African states manage disputes over shared resources like this and trade routes without escalating tensions or undermining regional cooperation?
Great. There was one point I should have mentioned from the very outset. Africa's philosophy of Ubuntu, I am because we are, as opposed to cogito ergo sum, going into the time of René Descartes. I think, therefore I am. Extremely individualized. Whatever I say is right. Yeah. My way or superhighway. I'm the only one. We are, this individualistic thinking goes to the contrary to African philosophy. African philosophy, we are because I am because we are, and I am because I engage, not I think alone. Thinking is very important. I'm not negating René Descartes' philosophy, but if African philosophy really, as Ubuntu, or Ethiopian or Madamar, or coming together, or synergy, definitely resonates with Ubuntu at the same time. So then if you African solution for African problems, that is our institutional setup, even in IPS, Peace and Security Studies at Addis Ababa University, so as to find common problems, common solution for common problems. We have African solution for African problems based on Ubuntu philosophy. That Ubuntu philosophy is communality. So for Ethiopia's access to the sea, as we had this Pretoria agreement, for instance, when Ethiopian government and that of TPLF, they were in the sort of fight, then our agreement was not in Geneva or somewhere, but in Africa, African solution, led by our former board chair, the Nigerian president, Obasanjo. And we still expect that Africans coming together, giving solution to Africa.
If the dialogue produces consensus on highly sensitive issues, such as constitutional reform or federal restructuring, that challenges the current political order, so in other words, if the outcomes of the dialogue challenge powerful political interests, what compels the system to act?
What compels the system to act, to put them into practice? If there are questions that come, for instance, to, on one extreme, get rid of this constitution. On another extreme, don't touch a page of it, nothing, a word of it. And the share of national dialogue, the role is to bring into the golden mean, to use Aristotle in my speech here. And that golden mean could be maybe revising the constitution. And that revision aspect is also clearly articulated in the very constitution itself, Article 104, 107 as well. It's just there, how to go about it. So based on that, the very system, unless they respond to the people's questions, because they have people's mandate, it is also their raison d'etre, their very survival is based on performing what people have demanded. And Ethiopia's leadership is almost always measured by, as far as I know, most of the time now, particularly currently, is by performance. Yes. So that compels the very government to translate these into action. Plus, it promised from the very outset to take on board the recommendations coming from national dialogue as suitable to the context that can fit the purpose of not only state building, but also citizen building, creating citizens, nation building as well. So that comes from that raison, that very reason for the very existence of the very government, listening to the people's voices. And yes, you are quite right. If there is some resistance, how could you? We follow that. and the media is with us at the same time, the people are with us at the same time. So look, this is what you said, and luckily the very government that established the very proclamation that give you this responsibility, I'm sure it cannot fail to perform it. That's what I take.
So you and the other commissioners are ready to defend the people and fight for the people?
We are together, and because this is, people's agenda, people's activity.
Yes.
And it's also generated by the very government itself.
Yes.
So we can hold the government responsible at the same time. Just speak face to face, not backbiting, not propaganda or hate speeches or misinformation, but directly put this one into action. These are what the people have said. Follow them if they can fit into the long-term Ethiopia's national interest and peace building and nation building. Then that's how we are to follow up.
Now that the National Dialogue Commission has been entrusted to lead Ethiopia's journey toward peace by fostering dialogue, how do you view this responsibility, you personally, and what message would you share with the House of People's Representatives who have granted you this authority?
With the House of Representatives, who are our bosses, to whom we report, our primary duty is to recommend what people have agreed upon in the discussion, in the dialogue. That's what we do. And then at the same time, as you said, follow up this. That's how we've been time and again, of course. We don't simply wait until the end.
Yeah.
We focus on the process, by the way. When the process is sound, even though you might have sometimes some mishaps in the conclusions or products, when you have sound process, almost your product is guaranteed, almost, because we like to engage in the process itself. So we keep on reporting. Here it should be corrected. Here should be done this. Then we are not simply waiting until the end of national dialogue. No, from the very outset, we had 4 stages. Preparatory stage, that is preparing exploratory aspect. From exploration to preparation, preparation to delivery, to the very action, and finally, of course, to follow up. In these all 4 processes, we keep on following. We don't wait until the end, which has been already in action so far.
Yes. You've emphasized the goal of a culture of dialogue in Ethiopia. What concrete measures or milestones would demonstrate that this culture, is actually taking root beyond the dialogues itself?
Number 1, the dialogue should be taught as a lesson in classroom. Should be included in the very curriculum. Number 2, dialogue should be, it's almost replacing the violence action, the violence act, beginning from vocabulary, actually beginning from the thinking, the thought. It is the thought that produces the words. It is the words that produces action. So these 3 should be coherent, beginning from dialogue, then into society, through not only peace education in conferences, churches, mosques, public gatherings, and not again that, institutionalizing national dialogue in universities, high schools, schools down there, to the smallest unit of administration going down there. Then people, for any daily problems, any age-old problems, whichever way they could come, the best way out is really dialogue, the new culture that can change hate into love, because whatever light you have can win a big darkness at the same time. So the best way to respond to darkness is really light, not darkness by darkness. So because that darkness of thinking, that fighting, that violence, that hatred can be defeated through dialogue, the light of dialogue coming soon.
It's interesting what you said about the curriculum. Do you think there's any difference between debate and dialogue? Because in civics, I think students in Ethiopia learn to debate, but maybe dialogue is different approach.
That's, to be honest, to say the list, the most loveliest question so far. I'm
Thank
so
you so
happy
much.
about, absolutely. This dialogic approach to knowledge is Socratic method in some law schools, including Addis Ababa University here. In debates, there is a winner and a loser. In dialogue, all emerge winners. That's a fundamental difference. That's why we said most of Ethiopian politics, of course, including all African and of the world, based on winner take all, zero-sum game. In dialogue, all should emerge winners in the dialogue process, because they happen to see each other's position. They put their shoes in the other parties. That's why I took that example of 9 and 6 a moment ago.
Perspective.
Yes. So debate, you are expecting to defeat. So debate is to defeat, and dialogue is to live together and to win together. So that is a fundamental difference.
This is going to the last question.
Yes.
How should Ethiopians measure the success of this national dialogue 5 years from now, let's say? And what would failure look like in your own assessment?
Right. They would say, sit together and tell each other. You see, 5 years ago, we would hate each other. We would never come together, we said. But now, through national dialogue, we came together, we discussed, we debated, and we conversed, and finally we resolved our problems. Now we're really gradually gaining importance, not only across this continent, but across the world, because we dialogued. And they would compare their our Global Peace Index, GPI. Look, Scandinavian countries have always been from 1 to 10, but this time Ethiopia 9 now. It's going to be the first one next, because we believed in dialogue. We believe in peace by peaceful means. And this I'm not simply anticipating, but we conducted an experiment at Addis Ababa University from 2010 to 2012.
Really?
Yes. And we had from 3 major ethnic groups in Ethiopia, from Amhara, from Tigray, and from Oromia. We put students in experimental group with the question that, does sustained dialogue induce trust and respect among people? And after 1 year experiment, we saw that those in the experimental group far exceeded in trusting each other, loving each other, who hated themselves. By then, dormitory, the students' rooms were based on ethnicity. But students asking, no, we like to live together with other ethnic groups. They started to change. It came from them as a result of sustained dialogue.
So you've seen it in practice?
I saw it in practice. That's why I'm assertively speaking that about 5 years or 10 years, people looking back, look how dialogue has been a medicine for the sick mind, not only history.
That's amazing. That's really great. I hope Ethiopians are as hopeful as I am that this national dialogue will come into success. 5 years from now, I hope you're coming back here with me and we'll discuss. I'll ask you the same question, see if any of your answers might be different.
Fantastic. I'm very happy to be honest. By the way, the one thing that should be underlined is the peacemakers, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of the Creator, as the very book says. So this dialogue is a way of making peace. It is also recommended by the Creator as well, because we Ethiopians, 98% of us is spiritual. So that is spirituality out there. So we believe also the Prince of Peace would prevail in this country, the peace, stability, and prosperity, my dear Tenzai.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jonas. It's been such a pleasure speaking with you.
Same here. Thank you very much indeed.
While national dialogue has yet to deliver visible change, its ambition and initiative should inspire hope. Its success would not only reshape Ethiopia's future, but stand as a reminder that Africans can confront and resolve their own divisions.
The Africa we want.